Two bars into the top and 2 bars of kick, okay? The album's called Small Group Jazz. The purpose of the music is often to create an atmosphere. And one of the classic atmospheres is American cities. And that's exemplified by jazz, which has for a long time been the soundtrack of our lives. I mean, the 20th century, the soundtrack of the 20th century, certainly in Western culture, is really jazz. And I grew up falling in love with a specific type of that music, and I suppose inevitably that's what's come through in this album. The influences of Blue Note, Riverside Records, Pacific Records from the West Coast, and writers from people like Marty Paish, Dave Pell, through to Quincy Jones. Well, when you ask me which is my favourite track from today for this album, it's difficult because after we'd recorded each one, I end up thinking, that's great, I really like that. And then we do the next one, and I think, oh, that's great, I really like that. I like the way somebody played, or I like the way it's come together. And I think Grooving Sweetly probably feels to me like it might end up being a favourite track. The choice of musicians for a project like this is absolutely crucial. There are lots and lots of very good players, and they can all bring something different. And what I wanted was the players who would bring something quite specific. So, for example, Tom Walsh, the trumpet player, who is the youngest of the guys we use today, doesn't play like an inexperienced young player. He plays like somebody who's absorbed the lessons of that music from years ago.
So I first became aware of Dick Walter's work just hearing from all my trumpet heroes about sessions and writers that they'd worked on and for. It's just so enjoyable to work with someone that's such an old school perfectionist at their craft, because everything's considered. There's no skipped corners or anything like that, and it's working with a really classy professional that does everything by the book and to the highest level.
Opposite him in the studio was Mark Nightingale, who's a phenomenally highly respected trombone player. Mark had in some ways changed the way that people play the trombone. He's technically so gifted that he's a far more important figure in that world than any of us realise.
In the earlier days, when you saw the handwriting, you knew it was Dick, and you knew that you were in for something that was going to be really well written, that was going to exude quality, and it just gave you a feeling of security before you even started playing it. And then, of course, it was opened up, and when you played it, it was always a delight, you know.
Andy Panayi was playing alto saxophone and flute. I've known Andy for, I'm not quite sure, a very long time. If he hadn't been available, I think we might have wanted to postpone the album, because there are lots of very, very, very good jazz flute players, but Andy has characteristics which are different, an inventiveness and a very technical and resourceful ability to play.
Well, Dick's always been great to work with. Obviously there's a lot of mutual respect there, but I just know it's going to be great. I say it's easy, but for me it is. It just feels easy when I've got that music in front of me. It just always feels right to play.
Great, absolutely spot on. Should we do one more?